If you hear that opening riff, if you hear that effortless, soaring, four-octave power, you know instantly who it is.
Instantly.
For decades, she was simply, elegantly, the voice. Today, we are taking a monumental deep dive into the life, the artistic innovations, and, well, the often complicated reality of Whitney Elizabeth Houston.
Yeah, it's perhaps one of the most, let's say, statistically overwhelming careers we've ever really looked into. We've pulled together this huge stack of sources detailing her journey from, 1977 right up to her untimely death in 2012. And our mission, really, is to synthesize that dual narrative that defined her. You have the spectacular, record-breaking commercial and artistic achievements,
Right.
running directly parallel to these intense, profound personal struggles that played out, under the glare of the global spotlight.
We're talking about an artist who became a true cultural phenomenon. She redefined what a pop star could be, really regardless of genre or race.
Absolutely.
She accumulated, 33 Guinness World Records? Which still stands today as the most for any black female artist in history.
That's right, 33. It's incredible.
Our sources take us from her gospel roots in Newark through the just unprecedented cultural impact of The Bodyguard and right up to her final kind of poignant comeback attempt. So if you're looking for a comprehensive, deep exploration into the scope of her monumental impact, well, you're exactly where you need to be.
Okay, so to understand the power of Whitney Houston's voice, the instrument itself, you first have to understand the power of her lineage. She wasn't just born into music. She was born into, soul royalty. And her upbringing provided this technical foundation that, frankly, few pop singers ever achieve.
It's an almost unbelievable family tree, isn't it? We know she's the daughter of Cissy Houston, Grammy-winning gospel and soul singer, part of the Drinkard Singers, founder of the Sweet Inspirations.
Icons in their own right.
Totally. But then look at the extended family. Her cousins were Dion and Dee Warwick. And Aretha Franklin was essentially an honorary aunt figure.
Right.
She was just immersed in the highest levels of gospel and soul from birth.
And that spiritual foundation, the intense training system of the Baptist Church, that was her conservatory. She was raised in Newark, New Jersey, joined the New Hope Baptist Church choir at 5 years old?
Wow, 5.
Yeah, and made her solo debut performance at 12 with the hymn, Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah. This spiritual depth, it isn't just biographical trivia. It's what provided the breath control, the technical mastery, and that deep emotional connection that really powered her voice for decades.
But the path to global stardom, it took an interesting detour, didn't it? At just 14, she was already singing background vocals for her mother's band. In Manhattan cabaret clubs, no less. Getting comfortable on stage.
Professional experience right there.
Yeah. Then, surprisingly, she shifts into high-fashion modeling. Signs with Wilhelmina in 1980 and quickly lands the cover of 17 magazine. That's a big deal.
It was a brilliant move for her brand, actually. That modeling phase cultivated this accessible, polished, girl-next-door charm, which was absolutely crucial for her eventual crossover appeal.
Ah, okay. I see.
So you had the raw, powerful voice of a gospel veteran, but the look, the image of a mainstream pop star. It set her up perfectly for Clive Davis.
Right. That pivotal moment. Gary Griffith, an A&R rep for Arista Records, convinces the label head, Clive Davis, to go see her perform at the Sweetwater's nightclub.
Yeah.
What did the sources say about Davis's reaction? What was it like when he first saw her?
The account is almost mythic, honestly. Davis was immediately profoundly impressed. He described her as the greatest voice I have ever heard. He even compared the thrill to hearing Janis Joplin or Aretha Franklin for the very first time.
High praise indeed.
The highest. This led directly to her contract signing on April 10th, 1983. She was just 19 years old, and Davis reportedly spent the next 2 years meticulously curating the right songs, the right producers, to ensure her debut would be a massive, global, cross-genre success. He saw the potential from day one.
Okay, so that debut album, Whitney Houston, it drops on Valentine's Day, 1985. Now, we often think of these huge debuts as just exploding overnight, but our source material shows this was actually a meticulous, kind of slow burn phenomenon.
Precisely. It didn't launch like a rocket at all. It debuted pretty low, actually number 166 on the Billboard 200.
Wow.
Yeah. It took 23 weeks, that's nearly 6 months, just to crack the top 10. But once it hit its stride, the momentum was just unstoppable.
Right.
When it finally reached number 1 in March 86, it stayed there for 14 consecutive weeks. 14 weeks. That is still the longest run for a female debut album in history.
That kind of longevity,
Mm-hmm.
dominating the charts for over 3 months straight,
Mm-hmm.
that speaks to something much deeper than just a flash-in-the-pan hit, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It resonated.
And the singles just kept coming. It launched 4 top 10 hits, including her first 3 consecutive number ones, Saving All My Love for You, How Will I Know, and Greatest Love of All.
And that set an early record right there. She became the first female artist ever to achieve 3 consecutive #1 singles off the same album. The result of this slow, steady accumulation of hits was just astronomical sales. We're talking over 25 million units sold worldwide. It cemented it as the best-selling solo debut album in history. Still holds that title.
Okay, now here's the crucial cultural aha moment, I think, that defines her early impact. The MTV barrier. We know MTV was heavily criticized in the 80s for favoring white rock and pop acts, right?
Yeah.
Largely restricting exposure for black artists. How did Whitney crack that wide open?
The sources absolutely confirm this resistance was real. MTV initially rejected the Vich for You Give Good Love. They basically classified it as too R&B or too urban for their audience at the time.
Unbelievable.
But the commercial success of her subsequent singles was just undeniable. When Saving All My Love for You became this massive chart hit, MTV was essentially forced to play it. They couldn't ignore it anymore.
So they were kind of dragged into it by sheer popularity.
Pretty much. But the real game changer, the one that truly broke the door down, was the video for How Will I Know?
Ah, yes. The colorful one.
Exactly. A highly energetic, brightly lit pop track. That video was put into heavy rotation almost immediately. This is the moment she shattered the gender and racial barrier on MTV that Michael Jackson had started chipping away at for men.
So she became the first black female artist to get consistent heavy rotation.
Yes, heavy rotation. It fundamentally changed the visual landscape of pop music forever. A massive cultural shift.
And the industry recognized this sea change instantly, right?
Oh, absolutely. She won her first Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance for Saving All My Love for You. And that very same performance also earned her an Emmy Award. She had successfully navigated that incredibly tricky tightrope between her R&B roots and achieving pop ubiquity.
Her 1987 follow-up album, simply titled Whitney, was an immediate, just unprecedented smash hit. Although I did notice in the research that critics were maybe slightly less thrilled this time around. Rolling Stone called the direction frustrating, feeling the material was maybe too similar to her debut.
Yeah, there's some critical grumbling, but honestly, the critical consensus didn't matter one bit in the marketplace. This album just transcended standard sales expectations. Houston became the first woman in history to debut at #1 on the Billboard 200.
The first woman ever to debut at #1.
Ever debut. And not only that, she was the first artist, male or female, ever to enter the charts at #1 in both the US and the UK simultaneously.
Wow, okay. That's dominance.
Pure dominance.
Yeah.
It stayed at the top of the US chart for 11 weeks straight.
But the statistical feat that is it's untouchable, really, is the streak. Whitney delivered 4 more consecutive Hot 100 #1 singles. It started with that absolute monster hit, I Want to Dance with Somebody Who Loves Me,
A classic.
and ran all the way through, Where Do Broken Hearts Go? This extended her total #1 run to 7 consecutive hits, 7 in a row.
7 straight #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. That broke the existing record, which was held by legends like the Beatles and the Bee Gees.
That's rarefied air.
Absolutely, and we really need to underscore this for you listening. As of 2025, she remains the only artist to have ever accomplished that feat.
Yeah.
7 consecutive #1s. That record stands completely alone. It defines the absolute commercial peak of her early career.
That level of mainstream dominance, though, it did come at a cost, didn't it?
Yeah.
The sources highlight that this urban critique really intensified, especially around 1989. Some black critics felt she had abandoned her soul roots for pop success, perceiving it as selling out.
Mm-hmm.
And it reached this really painful climax when she was actually jeered, booed at the 1989 Soul Train Music Awards.
Yeah, that moment at the Soul Train Awards was clearly heartbreaking for her, but it really highlights the impossible tightrope she was walking.
Right.
She addressed this pressure head-on, though, which shows incredible self-awareness, I think. She was pragmatic. She defended her commercial choices, stating basically, if you're going to have a long career, there's a certain way to do it, and I did it that way. I'm not ashamed of it.
That's quite direct.
It is. She understood that the pathway to global generation-spanning success often required playing the pop game, even if it meant sacrificing some perceived R&B authenticity in the eyes of certain critics.
It's a powerful illustration of that dilemma black artists faced in the 80s, isn't it? The demand for crossover success coupled with intense pressure to maintain cultural grounding.
Absolutely. But on a global stage, her sense of cultural grounding, her awareness was actually quite clear.
How so?
Well, even amidst this commercial peak, she demonstrated significant global awareness and activism. She famously refused to perform in apartheid-era South Africa. That was a big stand to take them.
Definitely.
And she took a highly visible role by participating in the Nelson Mandela 70th birthday tribute concert at Wembley Stadium in London. That concert was a monumental global event, watched by 500 million viewers worldwide, raising awareness and crucial funds against apartheid.
So she was using her platform early on for political statements.
Yes. And domestically, she formalized this commitment in 1989 by establishing the Whitney Houston Foundation for Children. She dedicated serious time and resources to fighting homelessness, supporting children with cancer or AIDS, and focusing on self-empowerment initiatives for young people. Her philanthropic reach was definitely developing just as rapidly as her commercial power. Okay, so as she moves into the 1990s, she actively starts to answer some of that urban critique we talked about. Her 1990 album, I'm Your Baby Tonight, saw her take on the role of executive producer for the first time.
So more creative control.
Exactly, exerting genuine creative control over her sound. And she made a very noticeable stylistic shift.
Right, she brought in producers who were defining the sound of the decade, didn't she? Like L.A. Reid and Babyface. Moving towards that New Jack Swing sound, a more urban direction, but still keeping her signature balladry intact.
Yeah, it was her attempt at really integrating all the elements of her musical identity, and it paid off. Rolling Stone, which had been a bit critical before, called this one her best and most integrated album.
And it worked commercially, too.
Oh, yeah. It returned her to the top of the Hot 100 with the title track and the ballad, All the Man That I Need. Sold around 10 million worldwide, a solid success.
Yet, the definitive performance of this entire era, arguably the single most famous live vocal performance of her whole career, wasn't even a pop song from that album.
No, it was the Star-Spangled Banner at Super Bowl XXV in 1991, performed against the backdrop of the Persian Gulf War.
It was just transcendent. Her rendition immediately became the gold standard, the benchmark against which all future anthem performances are measured, even today.
Totally.
However, it quickly drew controversy, didn't it, over the fact that the vocals were pre-recorded. The critics were pretty loud about that.
They were, but the source material clarifies this was primarily a technical choice, not some attempt to deceive, like a Milli Vanilli situation.
Right.
Her spokesperson explained it was a necessary decision due to the massive noise factor inherent in a packed stadium environment, and it was apparently standard procedure at these events, especially given the complex orchestral arrangement they were using.
Okay, so a practical decision.
Pretty much. But the passion, the arrangement, the technique, that was absolutely hers. And the public adored it.
They loved it so much it was actually released as a commercial single and a video. It reached the top 20 on the Hot 100, which was, at the time, the biggest chart hit for a performance of the national anthem in history.
And here's where her philanthropy really shines again. She donated her entire share of the proceeds from that single to the American Red Cross Gulf Crisis Fund.
That's significant.
Very. And that gesture gained even more significance when the single was re-released a decade later following the September 11th attacks in 2001. It reached number 6 on the Hot 100 then.
Wow.
And that made her the first woman ever to chart the same song inside the top 20 twice. And importantly, it raised over $1 million for 9/11 victims funds. So that performance had a lasting impact, both culturally and charitably. Phenomenon 1992, 1994.
Okay, the transition to film with The Bodyguard in 1992. This is the point where she arguably stopped being just a superstar and became a global monolith. Starring alongside Kevin Costner, she instantly cemented herself as a major Hollywood force.
The film itself was absolutely huge, grossed $410 million worldwide. That's massive for the early 90s.
Huge. Interestingly, the sources mentioned there was some media controversy because some critics felt the film's advertising deliberately tried to obscure the interracial nature of the relationship between her character and Costner's.
Yeah, that's a fascinating glimpse into the marketing pressures of the early 90s, isn't it? Trying to downplay that aspect.
But Houston shut that down pretty quickly, didn't she? She basically said the suggestion was ridiculous, pointing out, and I'm quoting here, "People know who Whitney Houston is. I'm black. You can't hide that fact."
Yeah, she understood her celebrity by that point was powerful enough to just bypass those tired, outdated industry anxieties. She wasn't having it.
But her celebrity, powerful as it was almost nothing compared to the soundtrack's success. This is where we need to unpack some crucial context for you listening. The Bodyguard soundtrack wasn't just a hit album. It was a cultural and commercial revolution.
Absolutely. It spent an unprecedented 20 weeks at '1 on the Billboard 200. 20 weeks. Just let that sink in.
And it fundamentally changed the sales game entirely, didn't it? It was the first album in the Nielsen SoundScan era. That's the period starting in '91, when sales tracking became standardized and electronic. The first album ever to sell over 1 million copies in a single week.
1 million copies in 7 days. The scale of the sales is just unbelievable even looking back now. It became the first album by a female artist to be RIA Diamond certified, which happened in 1993. That means 10 million units shipped in the U.S. alone.
Just in the U.S.
Just the U.S. Global sales eventually reached a staggering 45 million copies. 45 million. It remains unequivocally the best-selling soundtrack album of all time and the best-selling album by any female artist in history. Period.
That kind of dominance was obviously reflected at the Grammys in 1994. She won Album of the Year for the soundtrack, and significantly, she became the first Black woman to win that specific award as both the producer and the artist.
That's a major milestone in terms of creative control and recognition. Being credited as a producer on the Album of the Year winner? Huge.
And of course, the definitive single from that album, I Will Always Love You.
Her signature song?
Absolutely. You have a powerful cover of a Dolly Parton country track, but Whitney's interpretation just became legendary. It immediately smashed records, dominating the Hot 100 for 14 weeks. That made it the longest-running #1 single at the time.
14 weeks at #1, and it has sold 24 million units worldwide, making it the best-selling single ever by a female solo artist. A statistic confirmed again when it was certified diamond in the U.S. just a few years ago in 2021.
Following this just monumental period, she embarked on the Bodyguard World Tour. It lasted nearly 2 years, right? Across 5 continents.
Yeah, her most expansive tour. And it concluded with a really deeply historic moment. Those 3 concerts in South Africa in 1994. This was celebrating Nelson Mandela's election in the newly post-apartheid nation.
What an incredible moment that must have been.
Truly. Playing to over 200,000 people and donating all the proceeds to South African charities, she was one of the very first major global artists to perform there after the end of apartheid. A really significant cult-tagged film and production success, 1995, 1997. She very wisely capitalized on that film momentum immediately. She moved away from the thriller genre with Waiting to Exhale in 1995, where she played a successful television producer, part of an ensemble cast.
And she recognized the importance of that material, didn't she?
Yeah.
She called the film a breakthrough for the image of Black women. She felt it showed them not just as professionals, but as mothers, complex friends, business owners, a more rounded portrayal.
Exactly. It was a commercially successful portrayal that definitely influenced films featuring Black women for the next decade. Reviews were strong, too, noting she'd kind of shed the slightly defensive posture some critics saw in her first film role. She seemed more comfortable.
And the soundtrack success followed the pattern, right? Her song, Exhale, Shoop Shoop, became only the 3rd single in history to debut at #1 on the Hot 100.
And, significantly, the first song from a soundtrack ever to achieve that instant #1 debut, another record for her.
Her next role, The Preacher's Wife in 1996, saw her reach her highest-earning acting role yet, a reported $10 million salary. That cemented her status as the highest-earning African-American actress in Hollywood at that time.
A huge sum for the mid-90s. The film brought some of the strongest reviews of her acting career, but maybe more importantly, it really returned her to her gospel roots.
Now the soundtrack.
The soundtrack, it became a landmark.
Yeah.
It is still the best-selling gospel album of all time, period.
Best-selling gospel album ever.
Ever. And this strong spiritual connection was so fundamental for her, so non-negotiable, that when the album was controversially excluded from the main gospel category nominations at the 40th Grammy Awards in 1998, Houston did something pretty unprecedented for an artist of her stature.
What did she do?
She boycotted the entire ceremony in protest. She felt the exclusion was disrespectful to the genre and her contribution to it.
That takes guts, boycotting the Grammys at her level.
It really does. It shows how seriously she took her gospel work.
And beyond performing, she became a serious power player behind the camera too, didn't she? She launched Brown House Productions with Debra Martin Chase.
Yeah, with the explicit goal to actively improve how African Americans were portrayed in media, aiming for more dignity, complexity, better roles.
And their first massive project was that multiracial television remake of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella in 1997, starring Brandy.
That production was a genuine phenomenon. It drew 60 million viewers on ABC, gave the network its highest TV ratings in 16 years.
60 million viewers for a TV movie.
Incredible numbers. This move really proved she wasn't just accepting roles anymore. She was actively building the infrastructure for diverse artists in Hollywood and setting new standards for television film production. She and Chase later became the first black women in box office history to produce a film that surpassed $100 million with The Princess Diaries. Like a real producer.
Okay, so by the close of the 90s, the foundation of her public image, that pristine, untouchable talent, it really began to show some cracks. But musically, she was still innovating, right? Her 1998 album, My Love Is Your Love, marked her first studio album in 8 years, and it was a definitive stylistic shift.
Yeah, it incorporated a much funkier and edgier sound. She deliberately recruited hot producers of the moment like Wyclef Jean and Missy Elliott to connect with the current R&B and hip-hop soundscape.
And did it work?
It did. It yielded major hits like the title track, and It's Not Right, But It's Okay, which won her sixth and final competitive Grammy Award in 2000. So creatively, she was still relevant, still winning awards.
And her financial power seemed intact, too. In 2001, she signed one of the largest recording deals in history at that time, renewed her contract with Arista BMG for an astronomical $100 million for 6 new albums.
$100 million. Commercially, the industry still viewed her as absolute global royalty, untouchable almost.
But, as you said, parallel to this immense wealth and success, the negative press became just relentless. Reports started detailing increasingly erratic behavior.
Yeah, things like showing up hours late for appearances, sometimes outright canceling concerts with little notice. And there was the notable and frankly embarrassing failure to appear to induct her mentor, Clive Davis, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2000.
Oh, wow, she missed Clive Davis's induction.
Missed it. And she was also reportedly fired from a scheduled performance at the Academy Awards that same year by the musical director, Burt Bacharach, apparently due to her behavior and condition during rehearsals.
Fired from the Oscars performance.
That's
a big sign things were going wrong.
A huge red flag. And the rumors surrounding her health and potential drug use just exploded following her appearance at the Michael Jackson 30th anniversary special in September 2001.
I remember those pictures.
Everyone does. While her publicist at the time cited stress and family matters, her extremely thin frame, her gaunt appearance, it just fueled relentless public speculation. Speculation that, unfortunately, she later confirmed was indeed related to serious substance, like 3.2 personal struggles and life in the spotlight. And much of the public turmoil during this period really centered around her marriage to the R&B singer Bobby Brown. They married in 1992.
Right.
The relationship was notoriously volatile and plagued by Brown's own significant legal issues, charges for drunken driving, drug possession, battery, serving jail time. It was constant drama. They had one daughter together, Bobby Christina Brown.
That relationship fundamentally shifted her public image, didn't it? From America's sweetheart to someone increasingly associated with domestic drama and chaos.
Absolutely. And that public perception shift worsened dramatically after the reality TV show Being Bobby Brown premiered on Bravo in 2005.
Oh, that show. That was something else.
It really was. It drew high ratings, sure, but critics almost universally slammed it for featuring deeply unflattering, chaotic, and often just embarrassing moments. It showcased a version of Whitney Houston that was so far removed from her carefully crafted, pristine persona.
It felt very raw. Almost uncomfortably so.
Exactly. And she wisely declined a second season, apparently recognizing the deeply damaging effect it was having on her brand, her image, and likely her own mental health.
The source material also shows a clear, documented pattern of physical volatility within that marriage, beyond just the reality show drama. In December 2003, Bobby Brown was charged with battery following an altercation.
That's right. Police reports from that incident noted visible injuries to Houston's face, including a cut lip and facial contusions. That kind of official detail really underscored the genuine danger and instability she seemed to be living through at that time.
It's just heartbreaking to juxtapose that with the image she projected professionally.
Completely. Her most candid admissions about her own substance abuse came a bit later, during that famous 2009 interview with Oprah Winfrey.
Right, the big comeback interview.
Exactly. She admitted that while she had famously said crack is whack during the 2002 Diane Sawyer interview.
A line that became iconic in its own way.
For sure. But she admitted to Oprah that her drug use was significant and had escalated rapidly, especially after the peak of her fame.
She revealed that her drug use, which she said was light before The Bodyguard, became an everyday thing by around 1996. Escalating after the film's massive success and the birth of her daughter, she confessed very openly, I wasn't happy by that point in time. I was losing myself.
It was a really vulnerable admission, and perhaps the most visceral, just heartbreaking detail regarding the depth of her psychological breakdown came from her own mother, Whitney Houston, in her 2013 book.
What did Sissy reveal?
Sissy described the desperate intervention she mounted back in 2005. She actually used a court order and police assistance to press Whitney into treatment. She felt she had no other choice.
Wow, a court-ordered intervention with police. That's extreme.
It shows how desperate the situation was, and I think we need to pause on the details Sissy shared about finding the walls of Whitney's home in Alpharetta, Georgia, spray painted.
Spray painted.
Yeah. Sissy recalled seeing big, glaring eyes and strange faces painted on the walls, and she even found a large framed photo of Whitney where her own head had been deliberately cut out, slashed out of the picture.
Oh my God, that's chilling.
It really is. That image, the spray-painted chaos, the self-mutilation of her own photograph, it just underscores the intensity of the breakdown she was experiencing. This wasn't just about physical addiction. It was clearly deep psychological turmoil, this chaos playing out in her private life, so far removed from the pristine, perfect image she projected to the world for so long.
It speaks to just the immense internal pressure she must have been under, trying to maintain that facade of perfection while grappling with the chaos in her marriage and her addiction.
Absolutely. The mother's desperate intervention, using the legal system, really confirms just how far things had gone, how much danger she was perceived to be in. 3, the final comeback and death.
Despite all those struggles, she mounted a really determined comeback attempt with the album I Look to You in 2009. And commercially, it was actually pretty successful, wasn't it?
It was. It debuted straight at #1 on the Billboard 200, sold over 305,000 copies in its first week in the U.S. It definitely proved her selling power, her connection with her audience was still intact. People wanted her back.
Yeah, it was a huge wave of goodwill for her.
Absolutely. However, the subsequent Nothing But Love World Tour that faced widespread negative reviews. There were numerous rescheduled concerts, often attributed to vocal difficulties.
Right. The damage to her voice, which we'll discuss more in a bit, was unfortunately becoming quite evident to the public and the critics during that tour.
It was painful for many fans to witness.
Her final professional undertaking was the film Sparkle, a remake that was released posthumously in 2012. She starred in it and also served as an executive producer.
Yeah, bringing her career kind of full circle back to producing as well. The very last song she ever recorded was the uplifting track Celebrate, which was featured on the Sparkle soundtrack.
And then came the tragic, just incredibly untimely death. On February 11, 2012, she was found unconscious, submerged in the bathtub of her suite at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles.
The timing was just agonizingly close to the 2012 Grammy Awards weekend, which were happening right there in LA. It turned the entire event into an immediate, spontaneous global tribute to her life and music.
Just surreal timing. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office later ruled the death an accident. The official cause was drowning, but with atherosclerotic heart disease and chronic cocaine use listed as significant contributing factors.
A tragic end resulting from a combination of factors. Her passing led to an immediate, massive posthumous surge in her music sales.
I remember that. Her music was everywhere again.
Everywhere. She sold something like 8 million records worldwide in just the 10 months following her death. And she set one final, unbelievable Guinness World Record for a female artist.
What was that?
By placing 10 of her albums simultaneously inside the Billboard 200 chart, 10 albums charting at the same time. A final, powerful testament to her enduring popularity and the depth of her catalog.
Okay, so we absolutely must dedicate proper time now to the core of her legacy, the instrument itself.
There.
She earned that definitive nickname, The Voice, for a very clear reason. Let's try and break down the technicality of that incredible 4-octave range she possessed.
Yeah, technically she was classified as a spinto soprano. Now what that means is her voice had this unique combination of weight and brightness. It was powerful, dramatic, capable of both incredible lyricism and immense volume, almost operatic quality projection, yet somehow perfectly adaptable for pop music.
So power and flexibility.
Exactly. The sheer power combined with that legendary breath control was just unparalleled in popular music, especially at the time she emerged.
And that critical acclaim continues right up to today, doesn't it? Just in 2023, Rolling Stone magazine ranked her second on their prestigious list of the greatest singers of all time.
Second greatest ever, placing her just behind her honorary aunt, the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin.
Incredible company.
The best. And if you look at Rolling Stone's critique of I Will Always Love You, it perfectly explains her unique technique. They noted her ability to shift seamlessly from being gently brooding, where she used her voice in this light, almost unsupported way, to suddenly unleashing this showcase for her limber, muscular upper register.
So she could switch dynamics instantly.
Instantly and flawlessly. They said she executed the song with equal parts bone-deep feeling and technical perfection. That balance is key.
She also popularized, maybe even codified, one of the most imitated vocal features in modern pop music.
Melisma.
Ah, yes, the runs. Exactly. For listeners who might not be familiar with the term, melisma is the technique of singing multiple notes on a single syllable of text. Essentially, those intricate vocal runs. Think of the incredibly long, complex, drawn-out notes on the word I and I will always love you.
That's the prime example, but the difference between Houston's use of melisma and many subsequent imitators is really crucial. Critics consistently noted her moderation with it.
How so?
Well, unlike many singers who came after her, who often turned melisma into sheer vocal gymnastics, just showing off, Whitney usually saved the technique for moments of supreme emotional punctuation. It felt earned. She was controlled, powerful, but always precise.
So it served the song, not just the ego.
Exactly. As the UK newspaper The Independent once observed, something like, every other contestant on TV talent shows is a Whitney wannabe, but they often fail because they emulate the power without the control or without that crucial emotional reserve that really defined her artistry.
Her versatility was also pretty much unmatched, wasn't it? The sources detail her dexterity across almost every major popular genre imaginable.
Oh yeah. R&B, pop, soul, gospel, dance pop, new jack swing, funk, disco, house music. She even dabbled successfully in Latin pop rhythms. That ability to be credible, and not just credible, but chart-dominant in so many different musical spaces, really confirms the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's assessment that her sound constantly expanded and adapted through her collaborations with a huge array of different artists and producers.
She wasn't stuck in one lane.
Never. However, we do have to complete the circle of this story and acknowledge the very real toll her personal struggles took on this irreplaceable instrument. Her voice coach, Gary Katona, stated publicly that when he first started working with her after 2005, trying to help her recover, he estimated she had lost something like 99.9% of her voice due to her lifestyle choices at that point.
99.9%. That's devastating.
Devastating. Now, he did say that with intensive work, she eventually recovered maybe 75 to 80% of her former capacity before her final comeback. But that initial catastrophic decline really underscores the fragility of even the greatest, most technically sound voice when subjected to chronic substance abuse over many years to legacy and cultural impact.
Her legacy, when you step back, is simply revolutionary, particularly regarding those cultural barriers we discussed earlier. As we noted, she really carried the baton of inclusion into the absolute mainstream for Black female artists, much like Michael Jackson had done for Black men just a few years prior.
That's a great parallel. The heavy rotation of How Will I Know on MTV completely redefined the cultural landscape of music television. It opened doors.
She redefined the very image of a female soul icon, didn't she? Paving the way for that whole era critics eventually dubbed divification.
Absolutely. Without Whitney Houston setting that incredibly high commercial and artistic standard, the careers of subsequent global superstars like Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, they would likely look entirely different. She created the blueprint in many ways. She's still widely dubbed the greatest singer of her generation.
And let's put some numbers behind this unmatched dominance again, just to really let it sink in. She's one of the best-selling music artists of all time. Sales estimated at more than 220 million records sold worldwide.
Just staggering numbers. And the specific records just stack up relentlessly. She's the only Black female artist with 3 RIAA Diamond-certified albums in the U.S. That's Whitney Houston, Whitney, and the Bodyguard soundtrack, each selling over 10 million copies domestically.
3 Diamond albums is rare for anyone.
Extremely rare. She's also the only Black female artist with 6 albums selling more than 10 million units worldwide. It's a level of consistent, massive global dominance that translates directly into holding those 33 Guinness World Records, making her the Black female artist with the most Guinness World Records in history.
And her industry recognition matched those sales figures. She holds the record for the most American Music Awards won in a single night, 8 AMAs, which tied Michael Jackson's record.
Yeah, sweeping the AMAs. She also holds the record for the most World Music Awards won in a single year, 5 in one go. She won 36 Billboard Awards in total throughout her career.
Her status in the cultural pantheon is obviously confirmed by her Hall of Fame inductions, too. The Bet Walk of Fame, the Soul Train Hall of Fame, and then posthumously but rightfully, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020.
Long overdue, many felt, for the Rock Hall.
Her influence continues to be measured even now, in the digital streaming age. In 2020, the video for I Will Always Love You became the first music video by a solo 20th century artist to surpass 1 billion views on YouTube.
A billion views for a video from 1992. Incredible staying power.
And just in the last couple of years, her enduring hits I Want to Dance with Somebody and that Kygo remix of her cover of Higher Love have both surpassed 1 billion streams each on Spotify.
That ability to be constantly rediscovered and to dominate across streaming generations really confirms that the music itself transcends decades, transcends formats. It's timeless.
And we absolutely must not forget her extensive philanthropy, which, as we've seen, runs like a thread through her entire career right from the beginning.
Definitely. She focused heavily on the Whitney Houston Foundation for Children, providing scholarships, supporting inner-city playgrounds, medical aid for kids. Her anti-apartheid stance was powerful and public. She was a major advocate for HIV/AIDS awareness and fundraising, particularly early on when it was still highly stigmatized.
Right.
And notably, that concert she did back in 1988 at Madison Square Garden raised around $250,000 for the United Negro College Fund. She truly used her voice, her platform, for good, consistently beyond just the charts and sales. Hashtag
Gospel roots.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Because despite the immense pop dominance, the global superstardom, she never truly seemed to leave the church or her gospel music roots behind her. She consistently made it a point to include spiritual songs, gospel numbers when she was on tour, almost as if to acknowledge, where her vocal power truly originated. Her most successful, purely charitable endeavor, the Prophets from the Star-Spangled Banner single, raised huge sums for various causes, and that seemed rooted in a belief system that demanded charitable action.
And as we mentioned, she felt her gospel work was so essential, so core to her identity, that it led her to boycott the Grammy Awards when she felt it wasn't given proper respect.
That speaks volumes. So we'd strongly encourage you listening to maybe seek out some of her deeper, more spiritual work. Go listen to The Preacher's Wife soundtrack again. Maybe find footage of her final televised performance, which was actually a gospel duet of I Look to You at the Bet Celebration of Gospel. And just consider how that unwavering spiritual grounding might have informed her musical choices, her strength, even when she was being criticized for being too pop or when she was facing immense personal trials. That duality, I think the spiritual foundation powering the global superstar, that remains the most compelling, the most enduring layer of her incredible legacy.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the monumental life and career of Whitney Houston.